Today's webinar is organized by the Research Cluster in Urban and Regional Infrastructure System, ITB, and today we're going to discuss about a joint planning studio from ITB experience from 2014 until 2021. Aida, you may share our rundown for today.
Sampaikan juga ke mahasiswa bagaimana prinsip dasar waktu Anda running gitu ya, itu disampaikan.
The speakers for today's webinar is Ms. Sefwandi from University of Peradeniya, Sri Lanka, Dr. Paul Jones from University of Sydney, Fitria Nur Anggraini as the Master Student in Development Studies Program from ITB, Muninik Suhartini, and also Bu Shanti from our research cluster in Regional and City Infrastructure System. In today's webinar, we're going to start by listening to the greetings and introduction to our research cluster by Dr. Insinyur Heru Purboyo Hidayat Putro, greetings from Dean of School of Architecture, Planning and Policy Development, ITB, Dr. Sri Mariati STMIP. And then we're also going to welcome our moderator for today's webinar, Bu Shanti Yulianti Rahmat, STMT, MSc, PhD. And also we're going to listen to the presentations from our speakers before having the question and answer session, and also conclusion and closing for the webinar. Next slide, please. Now, let us listen to the greetings from the head of Research Center in Regional and City Infrastructure System from Dr. Insinyur Heru Purboyo Hidayat Putro, DLA. Dr. Insinyur Heru Purboyo Hidayat Putro, DLA, graduated from our undergraduate degree in urban planning at ITB, and then he also continued his degree in France at University of the Paris 8. He also continued his doctoral degree in the same university. Now he is the head of Research Center in Urban and Regional Infrastructure System Group with the research focus in urban and regional planning, infrastructure management, and planning theory. Now let us listen to his greetings.
Good morning.
Barani, you may start.
I would like to thank to all of you for coming and participating in this webinar. We from Regional and Urban Infrastructure System Research Group, as the group in charge of the material in this webinar, raise the topic of informal city, which is a joint planning design studio activities, which is an international collaboration between School of Planning, Policy and Development ITB with several international universities as well as participants involving students from several countries. The details you will get from the presenters. First of all, I want to thank to Nini and Santi who have prepared this webinar very well. Also, I am very grateful to Sri Mariati, who is, apart from being the dean, and who has the idea about this webinar series. But she is also one of the key actors in the implementation of a series of summer camp activities that have been running from 2014 to this year, 2021. Also, I am very grateful to Dr. Paul Jones from the University of Sydney, who will share his experiences while involved in summer camp series and also his thought on the need to study informal cities in the perspective of sustainable development goals. Thank also to Ms. Sefwandi from the University of Peradeniya, Sri Lanka, and Ms. Fitria Nur Anggraini from ITB, who will later share their experiences during summer camp. Distinguished audience, let me share an opinion about the informal city, which is a part of the built environment and is linked to the Sustainable Development Goals. I will use the study from Saninis et al., their article published in the Progress in Human Geography Journal in this year 2021, where urbanization is studied from the point of view of urban political ecology. According to the authors, the traditional understanding of the city as ontologically distinct from its natural surrounding is an unending debate because it is related to how the metabolic production of settlement is more related to the flow of capital than the human ecological process. They quote the opinion of Kaika 2004. There can be no homelessness without an economic, political, and social process that produce the home as commodity. No margin without a center, no periphery without a core. The authors question whether urbanization, where the earth is majority covered by concrete building, is the only way for human civilization to live on earth, which is an implication of the expansion of planetary urbanization idea. Then, when the discussion compared urban phenomena between the North and the South, it was found that conditions in the global South were relatively lacking in terms of infrastructure, which is included urban utility problems. Furthermore, the discussion continued with a debate between practitioners and academics, which then gave birth to a series of ideas about the urban agenda, such as Millennium Development Goals and then Sustainable Development Goals. What will be discussed later in the webinar is more or less within the scope of the discussion between practical needs and academic thinking about informal cities, which is one manifestation of the urbanization process that occurs in the countries of the global south. Let me note that what we have done at our group research together with our colleagues in summer camp is like applying a concept of micro-urbanization. An article written by J. and Seto, published in Landscape and Urban Planning journals in 2019, they considered that the micro-urbanization studies usually using GIS approach and satellite imagery on land use changes at the scale of land parcels. Meanwhile, our colleagues and friends during the summer camp invited students or participants to go down to the field to make detailed observation on the household and do interview with the resident related to the municipal utilities that the resident get, and direct and detailed observation of the life of residents living in informal areas are able to provide their own insight, and that what will be shared later. Once again, thank you all for joining this webinar.
Thank you very much for preparing the speech from our Head of Research Center in Urban and Regional Infrastructure System. Now, let us listen to the welcoming speech by the Dean of School of Architecture, Planning and Policy Development, Bu Dr. Sri Mariati. To Bu Sri Mariati, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Rizky. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for all of the participants today. Warmest greeting from Institute Technology Bandung. Our school is one of the academic unit at ITB, Institute Technology Bandung, with main task to conduct education, research, and community services in the field of built environment. We consist of 9 research cluster and one of the research cluster is research group for regional and city infrastructure system, and 12 study program, undergraduate and graduate program. We are committed to participate in the achievement of sustainable development goals. And it is also have a correlation, our mission to participate in the achievement of sustainable development goals with this webinar today that we conduct every 2 weeks to disseminate our activities in the context of sustainable development in built environment. And webinar today is the third webinar in this semester conducted by the School of Architecture, Planning and Policy Development with the main topic related to sustainable development in built environment. And the host for today's webinar is the research group of regional and city infrastructure system. Just now we have heard the speech from the head of the research group, Bapak Heru Purboyo Hidayat Putro, and also have introduced the member of the research group and also the activities of the research group, and the activities also related to the joint studio. That is the main topic today. We will discuss about the joint studio that have been initiated in 2014. Yeah, so this is the 7th year of the joint studio that have been
Mahasiswa S2, Bu.
Have been
Mahasiswa S2,
initiated
Bu.
in our school. In this opportunity, let me send our sincere gratitude to all of the participants of the joint studios in 2014, and also the teacher that have been participate in this joint studio. And especially I would like to send our sincere gratitude to Paul Jones, who have been who is the initiator of this joint studio in 2014. I remember that Paul Jones in that time he was in the University of Sydney with Bu Nini Suhartini, and also in the University of Sydney come to ITB and discuss the opportunity to conduct the joint studio. And then based on that discussion, we start to conduct the joint studio, and we took the location in Lebak Siliwangi with some consideration. I think Bu Nini will also explain that process. And also I would like to send our sincere gratitude to Miss Sefwandi from University of Paradenia, Sri Lanka, and also Miss Fitria Nur Anggraini, the student of our student from ITB from Master Program of Development Studies. And also sincere gratitude goes to Bu Nini Suhartini, as also the initiator of the joint studio and the member of research group of regional and city infrastructure system as a speaker today, and Ibu Santi Yulianti Rahmat as the moderator, and also the teacher of the joint studio and the member of regional and city research group of regional and city infrastructure system. And as I mentioned before, this is maybe as a reunion of the participant and all of the teachers that have been participate in the joint studio in the informal settlement. The focus of the joint studio that we will explore today is related to informal settlement, and of course it's have a relationship with the settlement and also infrastructure as the element of the settlement itself. I believe that this webinar today will give insight for all of us for the improvement of the joint studio and maybe the collaboration between all of the participants here and also the teacher for the future. And before I conclude this opening remark, I would like to open officially this the third webinar of School of Architecture Planning and Policy Development. With the thank you for all of the participants. Yes, I give it back to Rizky.
Thank you very much for Bu Dr. Sri Mariati STMIP for the welcoming speech. Now let us welcome our moderator for today's webinar, Bu Shanti Yulianti Rahmat, ST, MT, MSc, PhD. Bu Shanti Yulianti Rahmat, ST, MT, MSc, PhD, graduated from our undergraduate program in Urban and Regional Planning, also Masters in Urban and Regional Planning in our university, and she also obtained doctoral in regional planning from the University of Florida. Now she is the member of our research cluster with the research focus in transportation and infrastructure. Now let us welcome Bu Shanti Yulianti Rahmat. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Rizky. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everybody. My name is Shanti Yulianti Rahmat. I act as your moderator today in this webinar. And then first of all, I'd like to introduce the participant rules. First of all, participants should use a Zoom account with original name based on the real identity. And the second, participants are expected to follow the rules during the webinar. The third, participants are asked to mute the microphone and turn on the video during the webinar. So the one that has not been turned on the video, please do so. And the fourth, participants are expected to understand and follow the guidance on the how to ask a question as follows. First, participants can only ask questions through Zoom platform at the chat box. Second, you may see the chat box here. And the second, to prevent the possibility of the same question, participants are expected to view the question list that has been submitted in the chat box before submitting or writing the question. Okay, now the fifth one, the committees are entitled to ban any participant that does not follow the seminar regulation. Okay, that's for the rules for webinars participant. And then I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Dr. Paul Zones. He is a former Urban and Regional Planning Director in the University of Sydney, Australia. Thank you, Dr. Paul, for your participation today. And also our research group led by Dr. Heru and also with Dr. Mariati has been collaborated with Dr. Paul for quite long. To make the intro short, I'd like to introduce Dr. Paul background and education. He's got the PhD from the University of Queensland, Australia, and 2 master degree first from University of New England, and the second from University of Sydney, Master of Urban Regional Planning and Master of Art Development Planning. Also, he's been associate professor in the Urban and Regional Planning Program, University of Sydney since January 12 until now. Then our second speaker, Egodawate Gedara Isurika Sefwandi from University of Peradeniya, Sri Lanka. Her background first in geography, University Peradeniya, Sri Lanka. She got the first class honor, and Master of Art in Geography, University of Peradeniya, Sri Lanka. She has research focus on green urbanism, green infrastructure planning, climate resilience, inclusive cities to realize the goal of sustainable development. Our third speaker, Dr. Ninik Suhartini, STMURP. Her background, she got from University of Sydney, the PhD. Paul is her supervisor, right? And she's also got the master from University of Sydney and the BS Bachelor in Urban and Regional Planning. Her research focus is from urban and regional planning infrastructure. That's also why she's joining our research group, Urban and Regional Planning and Community-Based Infrastructure, Basic Infrastructure. Our fourth speaker is Fitria Nur Anggreni. She's a master student of Development Studies program for third semester. She has been awarded of LPDP Scholarship 2020. Her interest is municipal financing for infrastructure, SDGs, and regional policy. She's also joint official delegates of Republic Indonesia for United Nations 10th Economic and Social Council Youth Forum in 2021. Okay, so we have 4 presenters today. Maybe I will give the opportunity for Dr. Paul Zone for his presentation. Time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Bu Santi, for the introduction. So in this session, will be 4 of us that will be concurrently presenting our research book. So will be like a group work as a studio that we had. So Rizky, can you please share our screen, please? Yeah, Aida, can you turn off the, yeah, okay, thank you. Thank you very much for having us today, everyone. And I see some participants actually from our past class, yeah, in 2018. And we're having visitors from Australia, from other countries. It's great for us to have a reunion on this joint studio. So today, as introduced by Bu Santi, 4 of us will firstly like reviewing and also discussing our progress and efforts and also research focus on the joint planning, design, and studio, which focusing on the informal city. And we like to share our experience that we conducted in SAPPD ITB Indonesia in the last couple of years. Okay, next, please. So the outline for today is quite brief. So firstly, we like to introduce you about the rationale why we conducting this studio. And Paul will talking about the whys. And also after that, I will share you and also maybe remind you the experience that we had in the last couple of years regarding the studio. And then I invite Isurika and also Fitria to share their experience. And Paul will be wrap up the session before we having a question and answer session about the key takeaways messages that we have after conducting this studio. Okay, next. So what are the difference? Why this studio is different than compared to other studio that we have around the world, and why it's so significant that we need to present today. So the approach, as we know, that studio is the strategy of instruction, a process of teaching, and also a medium of communication and creative learning. Here in the studio, students usually work in a small collaborative groups, yeah, with multiple learning approaches. So studio basically is like the end of all the classes that they have in previous semester, and they exercise all the skills that they have they obtain in their classes. And studio allows students to have informal interaction with their teachers, also with visiting lecturers, and also residents, people that they like to work with. in the case studies, which is aiming to have more frequent discussion, also feedback, and more intense interaction. Next, okay, and the notion of joint studio here we encompasses working with different formal stakeholders and also students over multiple countries and also different degrees and different social cultural backgrounds. And we encourage the way of thinking that a student need to think outside the box and asking the so what of planning and design issues that are the central tenets of the studio teaching. Yeah, and as we know, I believe that historically studios play a minor role in planning education and a better degree in urban design, but studio has been exercised intensively in architecture discipline as part of their teaching. And despite of the complex nature of the city, still we argue that there is a minimal attention in the literature concerning the importance of international planning studios that allow students to be exposed to understand global city and also aims of sustainable development issues. So why we doing the studio? So Paul will explain further about the whys of having this studio in ITB. Okay, Paul, the screen is yours.
Thank you, Ninik, and thanks for the introduction. And yeah, as most of you know, I was at Sydney Uni, and just that little point of clarification there that I did finish in April of this year. But this studio, which has become quite unique, has been firmly anchored in exploring the city, I suppose, and what we'd like to say, you know, the city in its totality, as much as you can deal with the global city, the nature of the global city, given that it expresses itself in so many different ways, as we know, throughout the world. But what we know is that as the city changes in its composition, the way it's spatially and socially expressed, hence planning has to respond accordingly, and hence planning has also changed in its complexity and the things and the way it approaches not only our understanding, but the way that we put together the sorts of ideas for better planned cities. And as Shri said in the introduction, about notions to do with aiming towards achieving and helping to achieve the sustainable development goals. Why the informal city? Well, one of the reasons is that we're finding is that, you know, planners, designers and architects, and normally we find a mix of those students doing this unit, they're increasingly required to address more and more issues in cross-disciplinary groups. And as we see the nature of the cohort changing at the university, hence we're seeing a whole different range of backgrounds and professional settings to which the students are returning. But I think that the fundamental point about the city as it's changing is clearly the notion that all contemporary cities in one form or another are having to deal with the increasing growth of not only informality, but the major expression of informality is the growth and persistence of that word, informal settlements. Next slide. And so, you know, the reality which lots of planning programs either acknowledge or still struggle to come to grips with because they're not too sure how they should respond, is the reality that somewhere between 25 to 28 or possibly 30% of the world's population in 2018 and possibly now to 2021, they live their lives in informal settlements, which includes slums, which approximate 1 billion settlers. So whichever way you want to slice up the city, and especially the global city, informality and informal settlements are a central element of that growth, and increasingly a difficult area of urbanisation to deal with, because they just don't fit in with the normal sort of rules and order which we're taught and which we're generally exposed to. Next slide. And I think as we go through this studio and we talk to different stakeholders, importantly the students themselves, what we increasingly learn, and as educators in our programs itself, and myself being a director of a program and trying to deal with mixing all the different demands, educational demands, is that clearly the major planning pedagogy shortfall is that we tend to focus our planning and design education on top-down, Western-based, normally master plan education. And this tends to dominate our planning curriculum. And normally with that sort of approach, we tend to emphasize, and this is partly because it's reflected in our planning and legislation and so forth, is that there's a one-size-fits-all spatial model of city development, which is then applied to diverse city settings, and they're often applied in the name of attaining sustainable development. Just wait for that clock to stop. And hence the one-size-fits-all is applied. But as we increasingly know that, you know, cities, especially informality, is very much rooted in understanding nuanced and contextual settings, and hence contextual solutions are required. And hence, you know, trying to get planning programs to deal with notions of informality, notions of informal settlements, and importantly, getting some sort of curriculum which exposes students to the rules and regulations and the protocols by which these settlements are formed is very difficult, because it requires a lot more and deeper understanding and deconstruction of planning than what it does with the normal sort of top-down approach. Next slide. And so I suppose a major focus of the studio, and again anchored in the informal settlement, is really trying to explore, get students to explore with a range of stakeholders, the notions of what is the self-built city, notions of emergence and city complexity, because a lot of those issues and what they contained are really excluded from the current Western dominated and design approaches. So there's things to do with adaptation and processes of adaptation, things to do with incrementality and how incrementation occurs, which in many ways is the main mode of, you know, slum and informal settlement upgrading. Adaptation is, that is the mode of upgrading. These, unfortunately, don't get explored in any depth in current programs. And hence, if we, to flip it around, students are therefore, they're not exposed to the realities of development that occur within the informal urbanisation process. Haru mentioned before about the importance of the urbanisation process to sustainable development, but we never hear much about the benefits of what informal urbanisation provides. And if we think of our own region here in the Asia Pacific, then around 50% of the world's informal settlements and slum populations are contained within this region. So in terms of equipping students with knowledge, skills, and the toolbox to deal with those sorts of matters is increasingly, you know, fundamental to their education. Next slide. And so as part of the studio focus to respond to that, you know, the sorts of things that we try to get guest lectures, we try to talk to local residents about, and obviously we've got some very good academics who are rooted in some of this sort of pedagogy, is obviously to look at the dynamics of form, things to do with structure, and most importantly, things to do with community capital. As produced either through local rules, networks, protocols, and obviously needing to have a very good understanding of institutions and governance arrangements. And that obviously includes trying to get students to come to groups, what notions of local knowledge means and how it's incorporated into current protocols. And as we know, in the top-down system, this is often seen as not important because it essentially has no order. And I think the other things that we're seeing more and more in informal settlements, and especially as the sort of refugee crisis explodes in various parts of the world, is that, you know, we're seeing the major human rights issues, spatial inequities and inequalities that exist in these settlements, and hence there's a growing need to come to grips with how we can best deal with these, and hence we need to equip students with an understanding, and for some students to go on and make their career in this path. So I think it's not just a matter of education, providing them with knowledge. What we're also giving them an opportunity is to see different career pathways, and I think that's also a fundamental role for us as educators, to give students that option. And so what we've seen is that students after this studio then go on to work with either various UN agencies, UN Habitat and so forth, and NGOs trying to make a career in this space. And that's a fantastic outcome. Next slide. And obviously, again, you know, without going into the detail of the sorts of curriculum, clearly issues of contested space, in built space and unbuilt space, and most importantly, what contested means, what does private mean, what does public, and of course, when you expose students to all those sorts of things, then you get to see that this is incredibly messy and it's not straightforward, and hence, you know, you come to grips with a whole different mode of urbanisation and built and unbuilt space production. And again, you know, just to make, you know, the fundamental point that there's little or nothing in current planning pedagogy, you know, that tries to deal with sorts of things about in situ solutions and development. And unfortunately, as we know, things like evictions and removal are still common solutions rather than looking at other modes of upgrading. Next slide. So just, I think, just to finish off here, I think one of the great things about what this studio does when we cross borders and we do it between different countries is that, you know, there is the fantastic potential for cross-cultural immersion between students, academics, communities, and other city stakeholders, everyone coming together from different cities, countries, and socio-cultural background. I think one of the major you know, fundamentals of this studio that Bushri and Nenik and myself have tried to ground it in is trying to develop both, you know, formal sense, mentioning it, but often we don't mention it in the words that I will say, but we try to develop a cultural competency for all. And that's been one of our central goals, is that by developing cultural competency, that you're going to have be better equipped to deal with matters of informality and people living in informal settlements. And so when we talk about cultural competency, what we mean is the ability to learn, listen, and respect the views of different groups from many diverse ethnic groups, sociocultural backgrounds, and also religious backgrounds. And hence, really the notion of cultural competency rooted in this studio and informal settlements is fundamental for those trying to look at something similar. And hence, what we're trying to do is to understand the real workings of the city in its totality. So the city as it is, different sets of rules and regulations, and most importantly, different cultural settings. Yep. And understanding that we shouldn't be quick to condemn different cultural groups. We need to understand first. And they're important because they're obviously working alongside and with or without formal rules. So going just to finish off on a couple of those key points is that, you know, students come from both developed and developing country backgrounds to study, both at ITB and at Sydney Uni. And as we know, this year we've had universities from Portugal, Italy, Egypt, New York, and at all institutions that there's a mix. And so education and the way of education is increasingly global, but unfortunately the pedagogy remains narrow in focus. And most importantly, these students, especially those from the global south, tell us that they need planning and design solutions which reflect the context to which they will return as professionals. And again, that is fundamental to the studio, that we're teaching students and we're relating to students who will go back to settings that perhaps we're not ourselves actually work in. So students will be going back to India, to Saudi Arabia, to China, Vietnam, Thailand, wherever. They'll be going back to the settings and dealing with the sorts of issues that we're teaching them in this studio. And finally, if we were to look at some of the detail, the Australian surveys show that students want what we call mobility experience, that they want to be exposed to different planning contexts and development nuances, grounded in local realities where they can acquire new knowledge and skills in a cross-cultural setting in the Asia-Pacific region. And so if we look at the surveys, they show us an upward line in students wanting to look outside the box and look outside the Australian boundaries. And that's fantastic. Okay. All right, Ninik, I think this is back to you to wrap up some of these key points.
Okay, thank you, Paul. So our key arguments why we are running this studio is firstly, like Paul said before, that planning pedagogy need to reflect the changing cohort of the students and also the diversity of city settings that need more solution and more varied solutions on the ground to be applied. And also, we believe that transferring relevant curriculum by clarifying choices for future careers and increasing employability should be our major concern as a planning academy. And also, it follows that urban planning and design degrees should aim to educate students to be employable in varying settings of development. And again, like Paul said before, need to be culturally competent and need to be contextual in their approaches. Okay, next. And we agreed that joint international studio will allow a focus on major planning and sustainable development and expose students to the challenges in the global south. As we know that 50% of the informal settlements reside in Asia Pacific, so will be a great working opportunity actually for us as planners and designers. And here in the studio, we focus continuously on how to elaborate SDGs 11 goals and targets. We have different topics throughout the years, but we always focus on how to provide safe, sustainable, and resilient cities and encourage students to support a better understanding of informal settlements and how they create it, and the importance to having such skills and knowledge sets for students as planner, designer, and architects. Yeah, next. So here I will share you some of our development in conducting this studio. So initially, this studio is an international postgrad master of urban planning and design studio that we deliver since 2014. And here we conducted as a collaboration between ITB, SAPPK ITB, and also the School of Architecture, Design and Planning of Sydney University. And the genesis for this joint studio came from meetings between Dr. Paul Jones and Busri and other ITB academics. Here we also have Pak Wilmar, that time also having discussion with us in 2013. And then in the third Plano Cosmo conference in 2014, we saw the importance of having this cross-cultural student exposure to the informality and informal urbanism. Okay, next. And then after that, we started the first studio in 2015 and having 22 Sydney Uni students and about 25 IB students working together 10 days, yeah, having collaboration in Kampung of Lebak Siliwangi, just across ITB campus. And here we mediate IDP academics and having conversation with communities, also connection with central and local governments and NGO, and also we involve some research center, national research centers, including CORE. And after the studio, the event was followed by an exhibition, national exhibition in the University of Australia, Sydney, Australia, and this is an official exhibition. Usually invite Indonesian Consulate General as the main promoter. Yeah, and again, the studio remain focused on the process of physical and social adaptation and the emergence in kampungs, which is including the important roles of governance system, the local government systems, elaborating social capital and knowledge that shaping and regulating kampung form and structure. So more to bottom-up approaches that we elaborate here. Yeah, next. And the studio activities, as Paul said before, including guest lectures. Also, we working in small group work, and we doing field work, and we conducted student presentation, which is the best part that student like apart from the studio. Yeah, and couple of achievements that we have along this journey. That in 2016, this studio was recognized by UN Habitat as a key model of studio learning on informal settlements. And also we produce a number of books and publications that follow with sharing experience. So we having several presentations in various UN World Urban Forums around the world. And the best things that we have here, that we have students from our joint studio winning global awards based on their joint studio work. Yeah, next. And as we know, we around the world has faced COVID-19 turbulence by early last year. And in the semester one, initially we prepare all the means to having another offline studio. So both sides, University of Sydney and ITB, they're all ready for having this intensive hands-on studio. But however, we are pushed to change the studio to a virtual studio. Here, a lot of works, massive work to be done by the organizer in terms of changing the modes of survey and also the teaching. And the most complicated one is how to keep a student working together in a group, having this new mode of studio. And they also follow by cutbacks of resources in Sydney University and the reduction of students that they're facing, that push Sydney University to withdraw from the studio by the end of 2020. Next. Yeah. However, ITB never gives up. So in the 2021, having global support from different universities, we then expanded the studio from international, like a joint studio, to be a global studio. Here, each batch we have over 100 students participating, and we also having academics from all of continents in the world participating in teaching and also in studio discussion. But despite that, the original 3 academics, which is Paul, Busri, and myself, still involved in the inception and design of the studio, and we remain the key organizers in teaching and leadership under the leadership of ITB. And regardless the length of the studio organization, student satisfaction remains high, which is really a compliment for us. Yeah. Next. Now, I'd like to introduce you to the latest batch of joint studio that we run. We call it as Summer Camp 2021. And here we have some of the alumni of the summer camp. Thank you for coming. Here I will also show us some of the achievement from students. But before that, Aida, can you play the video recap from the summer camp, please? Can Rizky please stop sharing, please? For this year, summer camp is hosted by Urban and Regional Planning Program.
Hereby, I officially open SAPPD Summer Camp 2021.
Great to be able to see you today, and I am Tati Argo.
Great to see a lot of familiar faces here.
Be with the students. It's a great pleasure of it is to interact with the students.
It's a very interesting program, and I think so will be a great opportunity for all of us.
Morning. Hi, everyone. So thank you very much. I'm excited to be here.
Welcome all the participants here.
Welcome to the summer camp and welcome to the ITP campus.
We are here in this world together. We want to share our prosperity to be made into a sustainable.
Dumping grounds for clothing and rubbish at the same time. It's
Creative Campus, as we see in Bandung, and also I believe in many other contexts as well.
The future challenge of paratransit are concern to the society,
And then we want to introduce our specific issue on which we want to focus on.
Look, I suppose that's what's most important. One of the things
Regarding this slide, try to make some kind of separation between the SDG.
However, both area still have a lack sufficient living area, housing durability, and housing affordability.
You explain Lebak Siliwangi first, and then Tondo in the second order.
But in general, there is some effort. And maybe from the coming week, we will go by the
Issue of the national scale is data from the PPF of Indonesia.
Validated by community members and concerned stakeholders, and quality data is very valuable.
SDGs, clear narrative, targets.
Together so far, you might like to see either some of this program actually has
as a change in the level of use and the market share of respective modes to reflect.
I think it would be better if you could add explanation to the jargon or vision you do.
This as a good example for discussing about the SDGs in transportation.
Your ideas, iterate your presentation and iterate your draft. So it will be very concise and
Okay, thank you, Aida, for the video. Okay, then that's the recap for from our latest summer camp. The summer camp itself, as I mentioned before, we focus on the elaboration of SDGs 11 sub-themes, which is planning and designing cities for all. And initially, we have about 101 students selected. But by the end of the course, we having 78 very keen students with their mega projects. And these students are from 11 countries, and we having very supportive 13 global academics having working together with students and the organizers. Yeah, next. And in the summer camp, we have all virtual course, all running virtual, and we having online database, very massive database that we develop, including photographs, including videos from the site, and also collection of database from previous studios. And the case studies that presented by students, including case studies from cities in the global south, which is very interesting, having us working their work, their projects virtually. And here they're working under 3 sub-themes, which is SDGs 11.1, 2, and 3, sustainable housing and housing infrastructure, sustainable transport system, and also sustainable urbanization, which is very challenging for students. And here, instead of they call themselves as groups, they call themselves as countries, and they coming up with very innovative and creative names having their countries. And all the groups aiming to complete their main tasks, including student presentation, student posters, and at the end of the summer camp, they finish their portfolio. Yeah, next. And here are some of the excerpts from student work. Now we in the process of publishing their work and be preparing to bring further the student projects to a global level. So we at the moment we can't really share their work because still under construction. Yeah, here we have a couple of ideas in elaborating SDGs 11. Yeah, next. Again, here you can see different side of the world that explore, having the limitation in terms of database and also the access to information throughout the world. But anyway, the results is amazing. Yeah, and next here also some groups come up with very innovative solutions. Yeah, they propose some innovative solution and even they can brand it into very creative projects. Yeah. And here to make a balance information for you. So it's not only one size fits all. I will introduce you to two of our excellent participants. I mean, all of the studio participants, they're all excellent, they're amazing, and they're working out of the box. But due to other studio that they're having at the moment, here we have two participants that will share their experience regarding summer camps. Now I introduce firstly Isurika from University of Peradeniya, Sri Lanka, and then Fitri Anggreni from ITB to present their work. Isurika, the screen is yours.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Ninik, for the opportunity, and good morning, all. I hope you all are. Introspecting the international student experience at SAPPD Summer Camp 2021. I would love to share my experience, but first of all, let me thank Dr. Thamari Nisansalakitsiri from the Department of Geography, University of Peradeniya, because if it was not for her, that I would not apply for this program. However, she had come across about this summer camp program from one of her email thread, and she shared that information with me, and she asked, so one day, I know you are truly passionate about urban studies, but not urban planning. But if you think this would be a good opportunity for you, just give it a try. So I gave it a try. I went through the whole, the summer camp poster and everything available in the internet. And I thought that, of course, I'm interested in sustainable development goals. And I'm from Global South. And it was during the quarantine period in Sri Lanka. So why not I give it a try and see whether I can convince the selecting panel that I will be a good fit for this program. So I thought that I would give it a try, and I was fortunate to become a part of this 2021 cohort of students who were selected to the summer camp experience, and I'm really thankful for that to Dr. Thamari as well. So if we can move on to the next slide, these are my few key takeaways because of the limited time schedule allocated. So I will be talking about these 4 key takeaways with you. The first one is the insights on planning cities for all. Actually, the summer camp was revolving around this idea that planning cities for all, which was really resonated with me. That's why actually I have mentioned it in my statement of purpose as well, why I'm applying for this summer course, because it is about planning cities for all. That means the inclusiveness, like we need to plan cities for everyone, not only for global north, not only for global south, but as the citizens of the world who need to be equal, even though we have lots of discriminations and inequality issues, but we should be planning cities for all. So that inclusiveness, that was the part that really resonated with me, and I told that I would apply for this program. And there were lots of insights throughout the program, and we were really fortunate to be learned from many academics, global academics from every nook and corner of the world. They were really qualified and they were really flexible. And what I really appreciate about the whole program is that all the lectures were arranged in a sequence that it really helped us to understand the city complexity, all the theoretical dimensions, all the frameworks, concepts that I have never come across so far, because I'm from geography background, I'm not from urban planning background. But it was really easy for me to approach these things because of the sequential pattern that almost all the lectures, and it helped us to approach the tasks one by one, because it actually set the set the setting for us to understand and approach the task one by one. So lots of insights from cities, not only theoretical dimensions. Another point that I really appreciate in the whole program is that all the lectures started from concepts, theoretical viewpoints, but at the end, they actually showed the ground level researches and implications in global north and global south, especially focusing on global south. So if we learn these theoretical dimensions, this is how we're actually going to apply them in real world urban planning. For example, like we go through many programs like online studios, like online virtual conferences, webinars, but they would talk about these theoretical aspects, but really we see the practical implications and what are the challenges that we have to face when like trying to apply these theoretical dimensions in the practical world, and how we are going to sort out all those things with comprehensive understanding of city planning. So lots of insights from all the lectures, and I'm thankful for that. And the interdisciplinary knowledge again, because as I mentioned, even my undergraduate major was geography and my postgraduate major is also geography, but I'm really passionate individual about urban geography, and I was inspired a lot by seeing that even Dr. Paul had his undergraduate degree from urban geography. So it really inspirational, and I would think that as a geographer, I also can do a lot in future for urban planning, having that geographical background. So as a geographer, I know the importance of bridging this gap between social sciences and physical sciences or natural sciences. So there were lots of like interdisciplinary knowledge throughout this whole journey of lectures plus joint studio works, because it was not only about urban planning, there were lots of things, because it was about sustainable development. Sustainable development has like 3 pillars, and we are talking about the intangible aspects as well, and it was about these targets and all the indicators. So all those things were multidisciplinary as well as interdisciplinary. So all the lectures were quite impressive, and they touched upon numerous aspects of urban planning, not only just physical planning, but many aspects. So they were really interesting. And we had lectures from even the stakeholders. For example, Mr. Daddy talking about the experience at Tamansari, and from the Malina community also we have a stakeholder representative, and Ms. Sahara was translating that the whole story with us in English. So all those things, I mean, no one is left behind. That idea was there. It was not that academics talking, it was the stakeholders also talking about their real world experiences and how they have like perceived the whole notion of urban planning in terms of informal settlements. So another key takeaway is the networking with international students. So this is another influence that I really want to apply for this course, because I wanted to be a part of this international student set. I want to be a part of this international students who are going to explore the notion of informal settlements and how it has become now formalized, and to understand this informality, because it is an essential part and it is already inherited in the urbanism whole process. So we cannot like fragment it and study the informal settlements, because it has already become one part of the whole urbanism. So I really wanted to have this networking opportunities to get to know students from numerous backgrounds, like their professional background is different, their academic background is different, and even the culture, religion, and all the aspects are different. But they're also, I mean, all of them together are aiming at one goal, that is to achieve sustainable development in terms of the Sustainable Development Goals 11, to realize that goal in Global South. So all of us were having that idea, that mission. So we were going for that mission along with. So I really appreciate that opportunity, not only to network with this international cohort of students, but with the lecturers as well, because they were so flexible. And also the opportunity given to us to raise questions whenever we had things to clarify, because our voices were also heard. That I really appreciate. And sometimes I think all the organizers would agree with me that sometimes you couldn't stop students asking questions. They were raising hand one by one, but due to the time limitation, some of them couldn't ask question. And I'm happy that I could actively take part in this program, because even on every day when we had lectures, I could ask at least one question during the lecturing sessions. And I'm really happy, because I have never like taken part in with that enthusiasm and that active nature even during my postgraduate lectures. I didn't do that, but I was actually actively taking part in this summer camp program, because we were given the opportunity to ask questions and get things clarified whenever we had doubts. And all the technical supporting groups were helping us, like Tammy, Zahra, and many of the organizers were helping us to get things clarified, and there was like a huge database through ITB learning management system, and via Google Drive they shared a lot of things, so that also helped us to go through this studio work. It was like quite intensive work during this around 1 month period, 1.5 month period, but it was great because we were facilitated a lot from the Zoom facility. The breakout rooms were open for networking all the time, and Dr. Ninik was there helping us all the time, so I really appreciate that also. And another thing I got is developing 21st century skills. If you know that there are about 12 21st century skills like learning skills and also life skills and literacy skills. So we developed, I think I have developed almost all these 12 skills during this time period, because like we worked as groups, even though there were only like 3 of us in our group, including myself. We did a great job, and the other 2 members from my group were actually younger brothers. I felt like younger brothers to me because they were from Indonesia and they were having still bachelor's degree. We had like quite a complex discussion, but all those sessions were interactive. We couldn't use the Zoom like breakout room sessions regularly, but we met like we couldn't fit into our schedule, so we met usually during nights via Google Meet facility. But we have interactive sessions. We used the WhatsApp groups to the maximum level, because it was very hard for us, because I was attending my lectures, they were also attending their lectures. To fit into one schedule was one of the challenges we had, but due to these virtual facilities, and because we are more compatible with these virtual facilities, now we could manage it somehow. And I can remember even during this portfolio, the time that was allocated to make the portfolio, actually one of my group members were having 2 funerals, and he was like struggling with his final year dissertation, and he was amidst his internship period, and one of another member was attending like continuous field visit, and I was adjusting to my new workplace atmosphere. So all of us were overwhelmed, and we were going through like emotional roller coaster during that period, but we managed to do it because we had empathy. So these are the things that we developed actually: effective communication. And sometimes I felt that it is easy for them to use their native language and talk, because sometimes they were struggling with English to explain the things and concepts and what are they going to do, and our plannings and the things that we need, how we are going to navigate through this task-free achievements. But then I asked them, okay, you can use your native language, but they ensured that I would not miss a bit of that conversation, because they translate all the things right back to me. So our leader was not perfect, but we were doing our best, and I could develop lots of soft skills like being a geographer and compatible with ArcGIS, DAS Imagine and all those softwares, but I had not much experience in working with Miro or working in Canva or likewise. So lots of creativity outputs were there, because creativity was something that was evaluated during this time period, and creativity was something that they expected from us from the studio work. So it was quite different from report writing. As geographers, we do map making and report writing, but not much into this creative stuff. But we learned how to like have a balance between these like figures and narratives and anecdotes and text and everything. So there were lots of things that we learned, and we developed all those things. So thankfully to this SAPPD Summer Camp 2021. And if you can move on to the next slide. So I would like to talk about the essence of our task 1. So actually this was basically digging deeper into the sustainable development concept. So I have done development geography in my 3rd year. So I have gone through this sustainable development concept, but I never dig deeper this much into this concept, like why sustainable development, why was MDGs not insufficient to address the real world issues, why we had to like go for this sustainable development goals, and why there are 17 goals. And if we treat one goal, it would like automatically treat the other goals as well, because all of them are interconnected, and we cannot just focus on one goal. We need to understand the city complexity, and all these things we understood during the task 1. We did a massive literature survey during the task 1, preparing for the PowerPoint presentation. It was so intensive because we had to rely on literature only, but we were given lots of references to go through via this learning management system. That really helped a lot, because at first I thought, how are we going going to do that because I can't go out because I was stuck in this quarantine curfew in Sri Lanka. So couldn't access any public libraries, totally had to rely on internet facilities. So I thought, what are we going to do with? But all my group members helped, even the teachers helped, even when we asked from them for feedback. I can remember Dr. Paul Jones, Dr. Tati, they were commenting on our slides, they were replying to our WhatsApp messages. They were so fragile because this was a joint studio that was happened virtually. Because of that, they were so flexible with us and they were always providing feedback for us. That really helped us to like progress through the whole process. So understanding all these complexities and understanding this summer camp experience, even though it was virtual, that we can do a lot, that even this Zoom virtual facility has this much things that should be utilized to online learning system. All those things were realized from this experience. So I humbly speaking, I realized that sustainable development goals and sustainable development is not something that I had realized before theoretically. In the practical dimensions, there are many things that we need to know, like one size fits in all model wouldn't work. And the so what question that Dr. Paul Jones always mentioned, we need to question, we need to like criticize the things and understand it's not that we are going to like change the whole master plan thing. We need to go for strategic actions, and it would be great if we can understand where, when, and how to intervene that can make a real world difference. So all these things we learned during the task 1, and if we can move on to the task 2, actually there we had to like compare the 2 case studies. So our case studies were one from Lebak Siliwangi, Indonesia, and one from Mahayava in Kandy, Sri Lanka. So it was a struggle for me because I couldn't go and observe the things from Mahayava because of this quarantine curfew period, and I had to totally rely on internet. And what I learned so far is that it's really hard to find information in the internet related to Sri Lanka, related to informal settlements in Sri Lanka, maybe due to the lack of researchers, or maybe because the researchers were not available in online databases, or they were not given the access. So it was quite overwhelming for me how to find out this information, because in order to show that these 2 case studies are comparable, I need to find out data. And there also I found out that to find data related to like SDG performance in Sri Lanka, there are issues like there maybe because of data shortage or much. So I understood that as academics, as I'm a novice researcher, I'm a budding academic, but still we have a lot of things to do to like unpack all these things like informal settlements, their contribution, and data and research should be done in terms of Sri Lanka regarding these SDG achievements. And in essence, of task 2, actually, what you're seeing is how we are going to achieve sustainable development goals 11.3.2, that specific indicator to participatory slum upgrading processes. So we had to like brainstorm and we had to mind map everything, how we are going to like initiate this PSUP program, why they're not like, even in Sri Lanka, we had these PSUP programs, but why they are not meeting the exact expectations, where did it went wrong, why the ground savers were misled by the people, what they were having, why there wasn't any rapport building in between the researchers and the community, why couldn't the researchers understand the community, all these things we had to understand during this essence of task 2. And in the essence of task 3, if you can go through it, you will understand our suggestion in the portfolio. So understanding that there are like differences in task in the 2 case studies that we have already selected, we thought that this model would be a good one for the 2 case studies in order to achieve SDG 11.3.2. So understanding the importance of consultation and prioritizing the specific needs of the community, and then having a very good budgeting and progress monitoring to community programs. So this is what we actually wanted to stress out after the summer camp experience, the groundwork that we have done. So because of the time limitation, I would like to wrap up my talk like this. And should you have any questions, I would be happy to answer all those things. And thanks to all the organizers behind the summer camp, and thanks to Dr. Naik for inviting me to share my experience. It was a great experience for me to have a part of this webinar. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Sirka. So we go to Fitria.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I wish we are in the good condition, health and safe. Thank you, Bu Sri, Bu Nini, Bu Santi, and Pak Paul for inviting me. First of all, thank you for the opportunity so I can join on the most awesome summer camp because I got a great experiences as Ishurika mentioned before. My background is economic development, but from the studio, I learned a lot to be a planner and how to develop a policy. We got 3 tasks from this course. From task 1, we learned about the general SDGs, like the history of SDGs, the goal and the target, especially for SDGs 11.1 about safe and affordable housing. And in the future, we are faced with the various factors as increasing population, growth, and some areas. So the SDGs stand here to answer this challenge through the goal of SDGs 11.1 that to ensure access for all adequate, safe, and affordable housing and basic services and upgrade slum. Next slide, please. Okay. This is our task 2. In this task 2, we try to more focus our study to the issue and problem. And as the United Nations mentioned that the indicator of slum and informal allow access to the improved sanitation, and the condition is also happened in Lebak Siliwangi, Indonesia, and we choose Deravi as the comparison country from India. Especially in the condition of wastewater, most of people throw the wastewater directly into the river, so it is matter for our environment and our health. Next slide, please. Okay, in this slide, we also try to forecast the population and the demand for clean water and also the wastewater until 2030, and which show that the demand will increase until 2030. Next, please. Okay. After analyzing the projection of wastewater in the 2 study area, we know the main issue was inadequate wastewater management that has not been considered sustainability aspect, including environment, social, and economic, in the both case study, especially during COVID-19 pandemic. So to answer that, we are proud to introduce I1. I1 is integrated waste management. I1 is a wastewater management system that integrates wastewater supporting the infrastructure, including gray and black water channel, communal septic tank, and can help recycle wastewater to achieve sustainable sanitation. Next slide, please. Okay, continued into task 3, we try to wrap up our task 1 and also task 2 and detailing the I1, including the technical, budget estimation, organization, human resource, and also initial timeline, and put some advice from a lecture. We are very thankful because the lecture gives us many reference and advice. I really appreciate about that. And in this part, we also try to explain that I1 is very important because I1 is a social innovation to address social problem and oriented in problem solving, especially improving the condition of wastewater in slum and informal area. And we think that I1 is not only answer the target of SDGs 11.1, but also connect with SDG 6 that one of the goal is expand treatment, recycling, and reuse technology. That I1 is to try the recycle water to achieve sustainable sanitation using technology. Next slide, please. We know that the studio is very challenging because we have never seen the location our study case before, and we should read a lot of reference, journal, and secondary data, and also the report. And we also should be managing our time because we come from different background study. We have a different activity, and we know that everybody is busy, so we should learn to coordinating and communicating with each other. And once again, thank you for the support from the director and committee and my friend from Wakanda, Iswan, Eka, Yumi, and Izet. Thank you for the opportunity. And me as a today generation believe that the future generation should be as well as the better than us. So therefore, SDG strike to a balance between today generation and tomorrow generation, so we can get equal benefit for all. And I hope we can meet again with other opportunity, and stay safe and healthy, everyone. See you. Thank you, Bu.
Okay, thank you, Fitria and Isurika. Excellent speech on your studio work. And again, it's only part of our working team that having us today. Actually, we will soon publish the portfolios, which is fantastic, and I will share you all the work from students. And here now we up to the end of this presentation. Now I invite again Paul Jones to deliver some key takeaway messages from the studio. Paul.
Thanks, Bu Ninik. If I can just reiterate Ninik's point there, some fantastic reflections there by Isurika and Fitria. I mean, said in their own words, not prompted. They've done that on their own, and that's they're really great insights. I think it's not just students learning. Definitely, many of academics and Paulo from Portugal often mentions how much we learn from students, and the way you both of you put key points then was very good, and so you both need to be complimented on how you put all that together. So if I can just we finish up now, what are some of the key takeaway messages if we're thinking about studios and studios that try to take in a different look at the city and try to address the informality? And I think the key points I think that we come back to is that institutional support and leadership really remains central to the success and the continuity of the studio. And so it's not just, I think, leadership at the individual academic level. It's actually the support of the actual of the discipline groups. So in this case, it's Bu Shree's Mariati, the group, the planning and policy development and architecture and design. But it's also the wider leadership, such as higher up in ITB, and they will have their own reasons why they think this is important in terms of global education. So I think that's really important. If you look back and how this thing has progressed, the institutional support, sure, it's varied and it's waned at times, but we still see, and now we see ITB as being the key leader, and that's a fantastic outcome. Secondly, I think academics that we've had involved in the program, and I mean, Isurika sort of made this point herself, that they need to show a genuine need, understanding of the importance of informality, the self-built city, and informal settlements, and the need for its incorporation into mainstream planning and design. I think you need to have academics who have experienced it, and that they want to, that they have a passion for this, and they want to share with students, and hopefully the students can get that passion as well. And as I said, for some, they'll go on and make their career in this. So I think that's central. So having people like Shree and Ninik and Paulo and Sylvia and all the others that we have involved who have a great love for this topic is essential. And finally, there's the takeaway message about the city itself, that students, not only students who do it, but also the academics who are sharing and all the other players that are involved in it, they all have an interest and an understanding about the importance of informality, of those who live their lives in informal settlements, and importantly, in teaching, in terms of things about emergence, adaptation, things about cultural competences, we said, are really fundamental. And I suppose understanding city complexity in all its dimensions, you know, are really fundamental. The fundamental themes which go through all the instruction and all the material that's shared in the studio. And as we saw from this year, we had SDG 11, and you know, we dealt with the Going Global South in the context of SDG 11. So I think they're really, I think for me, the key takeaway messages of how the studio has evolved and where it's where it's going. And it's only natural that the studio will evolve. Players will come and go. You know, people like Sydney Uni, you know, they've been involved, but then for whatever reasons they decided not to continue. But on the other hand, others have then picked up the mantle and run with it, and we've taken the studio to another level. So, you know, all those things are just part of its progression, and again, it's adaptation as well. Thank you, Nini.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you again, Surika and Fitria. And this some of our latest publications based on our studio work. And now I return the screen to Bu Santi. Thank you, Bu Santi.
Thank you, Bu Ninik, for a great presentation and also sharing about the implementation of Studio. Now we're going to have question and answer session. For the audience who has a question, please write down the question on the chat room, and I can read along that question, and the speaker can answer. Thank you. Please. Maybe for the first question, we can just go through because there's no way the similarity on the question, right? Okay, is there any question from the audience? Maybe for taking the time, I would like to ask one very important insight, maybe from the latest studio, which is about the SDGs. How you can come up with the sum of how you can come up with that idea, please.
Paul, you want to go first?
Well, I'll just say a couple of words from mine, and then I think you can throw it in. But look, the theme, I suppose each year we sort of have the basic knowledge that we want to sort of instruct, I suppose. So things, importance about you know, about the growth and the expansion of informal settlements, about informal organisation, so bigger picture, and then those things about you know, things to do with rules and regulation and examples of adaptation, emergence, you know, social capital, the governance arrangements. So those are the basic things that we try, and I suppose it's really a group decision, and also suggestions from others. So other colleagues that we know in UN Habitat and UNSCAP have suggested that we do them in, you know, use the SDGs as a theme, and so that's, I think it's really a matter of picking something that's topical, and also something that we do have some knowledge and expertise. So obviously at ITB we have expertise in Shree's group, people who specialise. So I think all of those things come together in terms of picking the theme. So next year's theme could be, you know, open as well. It could be something on, you know, formal upgrading, or, you know, whatever. Or social capital, or could be actually on a specific topic. So those things really are up to suggestions, and also, I suppose, based on feedback from that we get from students about how can we get the messages over better. So those things that Petria and Sarika said, we'll go back and have a sort of fairly good look at those, because they were very clearly sort of put out about what sort of things that they gain. So I think that that all those things will come into the mix of what's of the theme. Nick, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, thank you, Paul. And here, four of us actually the teachers, from the studio. If I may ask you, Bu Santi, what is your impression about the summer camp?
The summer camp?
Yes.
It's very interesting. That's why I say how you can come up with the SDGs, and the student can learn how to operationalize actually the indicators from the SDGs into the action that they can contribute or suggest as recommendation. I think that's a really good part of how you can manage the bigger theme that actually, if we think the goal is very like broad, but that's how you can make it detail and then answer the indicators by the solutions. I think that's the best one.
Yeah, thank you, Bu Santi. And here we also have students, I believe. I don't know whether any students from our latest batch. Here we have Kelvin, Revi, and Wenjay. Yeah, I believe you're very busy with your studio now, but thank you for coming. Do you want to share some insights from your side about the summer camp? Kelvin, maybe?
Hello. Does
Yes.
my sound can be heard?
Yes.
Yes, very well, Kelvin.
Okay. Sorry, I cannot on cam right now because I have another schedule on my studio. From SAPPD, I and my team make the innovation about Ranyumba, the rainwater harvesting for Lebak Siliwangi and Kibera, and it is community based. And I think the innovation is try to make the community have the water, and it's not it's just about another alternative, and we have the progress to make it with collaboration with the LSM or Kotaku in Lebak Siliwangi. And after all, the budget is proportion with the community budget, like that. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Kelvin. I also have Wenjay here from different groups. Wenjay, can you hear us? No. And also we have Bu Santi, some alumni from last studios, if I may invite them to talk about their experience.
Of course.
Yeah, we here having Johan, yeah, and also Amanda, and also I saw Dimas. I think he's gone now. Dimas, yeah, Dimas and Amanda, who won the ISO Cup World competition regarding urban planning. Amanda, do you want to share something about your experience from the past studio?
Hi, Bu Nuni.
Hello, how are you?
I'm fine. How about you?
Yeah, it's great. Great to have you here.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sorry I can't turn my video on, but I just want to say that it's been a exciting experience to be part of SAPPD joint studio last year, and it's I don't know what to say. It's just an amazing experience, and it helps me to achieve the ISOCARP awards to 2020. Thank you for Bunini and all the committee of summer camp and joint studio. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Amanda. Good to see you here. And Bu Santi, I return this to you. I think we achieved the time. And here, maybe Bu Dekan, the Dean of School, want to share some insights from the studio, Bu.
Yes, Bu Nini. I think it's a very good experience. I mean, it's not only the material of the studio itself, but also the process that we have conduct since 7 years ago. I think it's can be a model to have a good studio. I mean, it's not only to how to we give the material, but also how we define the topic, and also how we involve the student and give the experience to the student. And also I think it's a good thing that the topic is related to informal settlement, and it can give us the insight how we contribute to the achievement of sustainable development goals. And I think it is also important for the student or participant of the joint studio to get experience on how to deal with the problem in informal settlement. It's not only related to infrastructure, because this is in we conduct the webinar in research group of regional and city infrastructure, but also other aspects such as economic, social, and then of course the housing itself. Yes, it's so we can learn from this joint studio not only the material, but also the process, and then how we maintain the sustainability of the joint studio. Yeah, I think that's all. And I would like to send my sincere gratitude to all of the teacher and also participant, the student, previous student that also have come to this joint not this webinar with the topic of joint studio. Yeah, that's all, Bu Nini, Bu Santi.
Thank you, Bu. Okay, Bu Nini, maybe we can recap all our activity today. So now we almost get in the end of this webinar. So I like to have the concluding remark that we already seen the experience of joint planning studio that first Dr. Paul already talked about the reasoning behind why we have the studio and the topic of informality, because the changing of complexity, and we hope that students can understand better about growth of informal settlement and diversity of the city condition along with the alternative solution. Also, they got the mobility experience reflecting the experience to their future professional setting. Join international studio focus on sustainable development challenge in the global south, the recent one, and the SDGs 11 safe, sustainable, and resilient city. So we have a cross-cultural student, and Also, by the process, we changed the shape of studio to adapt with the current situation. And this is very challenging, but also like our team said that not only the material and the process also give the insight for the model of the studio in the future, maybe. So this is a very good one. If we can like learning the process and also to put in another studio, because what we can do about the condition and we should adapt for that. We also have the experience from our student. This is Surika and Fitria. Thank you for your contribution. They said that they can take away the insight, knowledge gain, networking, developing skills such as leadership, and they also pleased to have opportunity to join the program. Also learn a lot as planner, and they also can be able to have detailed tasks from the team that assigned to them. Also, I saw very good like jargon, like I want for the innovation and technology on wastewater management. That's also a good insight how you can develop the recommendation into kind of like jargon to market the solution itself. Thank you. So lesson learned, we have to explore, innovate, coordinate through the network, manage the time, and get the benefit for all. Thank you. Maybe that's the recap from me, and we can go through our webinar. I put back to the MC, please, Rizky.
Thank you very much, Bu Shanti, as the moderator for today's webinar. Before we close our webinars today, let us take some pictures together. Please kindly turn on your camera now so we can take the pictures together.
Okay, I will count 1, 2, 3, and please smile. Okay, 1, 2, 3, smile. Wait, I will take one more picture. Okay. Okay. Okay, already take the picture. Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Yes.
Mbak Aida. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending this third webinar from the School of Architecture, Planning and Policy Development ITB Webinar Series 2021. We have reached the end of today's webinar. As a part of the committee, I would like to deeply apologize for the flaws during the webinars today, and I would like to also deliver our greatest thanks for your participation today. Thank you very much once again. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon.